Hello again, dear students. Today I'm going to be focusing on some of the grammar that you will find on the first 5 chapters in your Listening and Speaking 3 book. Now, the first grammar point is from unit number 1, where they talk about action and non-action verbs. Now, there is a small difference between action and non-action verbs. As you can see, action verbs are related to action, like run, jump, and speak. And non-action verbs are states, situations, not actions. Some of the verbs that we find here are hate, like, love, want, and wish. Now, there is a difference between action and non-action. It is said that non-action verbs cannot take the progressive form, but there is an exception that we will look it up in the next slide. As you can see, this is a very simple grammar. You can see it's the simple present, and I have written some of the examples. I wrote the verbs in the capital letter so you can see how it is written when we're using the third person. The first sentence says Martin speaks 3 languages. So don't forget, every time you're using the third person and the verb in the present tense, add the s. Maria reads a lot. Also, when we're using non-action verbs, like the example that I have here, Carlos loves springtime. Loves. Third person, don't forget to add the s on the verb, loves. And the other example, Jaime hates apples, which is a non-action verb. Now, the present progressive. When you're using action verbs, you're going to be using the verb to be and the verb with ing, as you can see it in the first example. Martin is sitting on the beach. They are reading an email. And like I said before, some non-action verbs have exceptions, like smell, taste, feel, look, and think. I have written an example to show you. Jennifer is feeling bad. As you can see, we're using the structure of the present progressive, even though the rule at the beginning said that the non-action verbs could not take the progressive form. But, like I said before, there is an exception with the 5 verbs that you have in the list. Example, Jennifer is feeling bad. She has a headache. Also, in one of the units in the book, you found the models of advice. So the key word here is advice. For advice, you're going to use should not, which is the negative form, and ought to. And for strong advice, you are going to use had better. I have also written some examples so you can see the use of these models. In a question, should I bring my books to this class? Okay, the person is asking for advice. Now, this could be the next sentence could be the answer. You should bring all your materials to the class. So you are giving advice. You should not play with fire. It's dangerous. Again, you are giving advice. You ought to get a car insurance. Now, ought to and should are very similar, and I would say that should is more informal. When you speak with a native speaker or at any time, people would use should instead of ought to. Now, had better is for strong advice. The example that you have there is you had better do your assignment. Okay, that's a strong advice. Otherwise, you will fail the subject or the course. The last example that I wrote says he had better not jump from the balcony. Okay, again, strong advice. He had better not jump from the balcony. Why? Because he can break his legs. Okay, so that's going to be a strong advice. So remember, for advice, should and ought to, and for strong advice, had better. Another grammar point from the book are reflexive pronouns. I listed all the reflexive pronouns, and there you have them. Myself, yourself, herself, himself, itself, ourselves, yourselves, and themselves. I have also written some examples so you can see how they are used. Now, these reflexive pronouns are going to be used when the subject and the object are the same person. I also wrote the subject in the capital letters and the object in capital letters. The cat scratched itself. Okay, so the subject cat and the object itself. So you need to be clear on what the subject is and what an object is. The next example, John pushes himself to the limit. Subject John, object himself. And the last example, they can do it themselves. They the subject, themselves the object. In this same unit, you will also find information about reciprocal pronouns. Each other for 2 people and one another for more than 1 person, more than 2 people in this case. Okay, I want to focus on the difference between the reciprocal pronouns and plural reflexive pronouns, because they have different meanings. The sentence may look similar, but they are going to have different meaning. Let's analyze the 2 examples that I have written. The first one says Julio and Pedro helped themselves, and the other example says Julio and Pedro helped each other. Now they may look similar, but they have different meaning. When I say Julio and Pedro helped themselves, it means that Julio helped himself and Pedro helped himself. And when I say Julio and Pedro helped each other, it means that Julio helped Pedro and Pedro also helped Julio. Now in the next example, we hurt ourselves and we hurt each other. So it means that one person, let's say that Pedro and Juan, Pedro hurt himself and Juan hurt himself. And when we say we hurt each other, it means that they probably were in a fight and Pedro hurt Juan and Juan hurt Pedro in this case. So take notice of these different meanings when using reflexive pronouns and reciprocal pronouns. Thank you.